Let's move on to the Northeast 8 because we're trying to decide who's number one in the conference. It'll come down to Friday night in Kendallville. Bellmont at New Haven. Bellmont undefeated so far in this new conference. New Haven, or excuse me, East Noble, I should say. I meant East Noble, with the one loss. So as far as this game goes, what are going to be some of the biggest keys? Because Bellmont, people want to keep putting them on the back burner, but all they do is continually win games and look good Friday in and Friday out.
I think Bellmont's just got to be ready to play. I'm sure they will be, but going into Kendallville, hostile environment on the turf, East Noble's going to be fired up. Andrew McCormick with 6 touchdowns last week. I mean, he can play. He's back. Zach Jenkins can throw it a little bit when they put Andrew McCormick outside. Just a tremendous test for Bellmont, the second biggest, maybe arguably the biggest behind Leo this season. So it's a huge game for Bellmont. It's just a game that they better be ready to play. Better not get off to a slow start, because if they fall behind, I think, East Noble by a couple of scores, it's going to be very tough to come back in an environment and an atmosphere that's surely going to be electric in Kendallville on Friday.
We talk about East Noble's offense with frequency, but they gave up 214 yards rushing last week to New Haven. You say that's not great. 79 of those came on one play. So you cut out, a breakaway by Buddy Jones, who's going to do that. You're holding them to about 140 yards rushing in a game. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
How do they do that against a Bellmont team that A, is known for rushing, B, very fundamentally sound on the offensive line, if not enormous on the offensive line? They know what they're doing up there. And also C, has 2 guys that can run the football in Jordan Amaker and Caleb Hankinson, and they've been great over the last couple of weeks.
Tremendous. And last week, it was all them for the offense. I don't think they had a single passing yard last week. But they didn't really have to. They were moving the ball. But that, I think, is the key for East Noble, because you mentioned that rushing defense. If it can slow that running game for Bellmont down and make them pass maybe more than 12 to 15 times in that game, I think that benefits East Noble. So that's going to be a huge factor Friday on if the Knights can really slow down that running game for Bellmont that's led them most of the year.
This is an interesting matchup in terms of tempo, because Bellmont likes to get the game done by 9:15.
Which is great for us.
Yes, perfect.
It's awesome.
That's why we love Larry Getz. They like to get the game done as fast as possible, grind it out. Possessions that last 6 to 8 minutes, eat up almost an entire quarter of the clock. East Noble wants to score as quickly and as frequently as possible. So going into this game, is this a battle of which tempo wins? Because we talk about that in basketball more so than in football,
right.
But 2 very different tempos and approaches to time of possession in a game.
Yeah, most definitely. I think East Noble obviously is going to want to keep Bellmont on their heels with their tempo offensively, and Bellmont is really want to grind out yards, long drives, and keep that ball away from East Noble's offense, just for how electric it's been. So it probably will factor in. I think Bellmont will want to put some quick drive or some long drives together, but I guess if they're scoring quick, they're really not going to complain. So we'll see. It should be an interesting dynamic, because, like you mentioned, I mean, it's true. Both teams kind of like their tempo in different ways from the other one.
McCormick is obviously going to be a big focus defensively for Bellmont, but you got Jake Torrey, you got Dylan Hunley, you got Nate Ogle out there making catches for East Noble. How do they corral those guys? Because McCormick spent a lot of the running game and obviously has done well through the air, but he has a number of receivers to pick from. How do they go about taking some of those options away?
That's an interesting point, because I don't think Bellmont has faced a team with so many offensive weapons as East Noble has. You look at DeKalb, and they have one weapon with Will Chrisman. Lee Oak has a couple guys on the outside that catch balls, but East Noble legitimately has 2 or 3 guys. And then when they put Jenkins, a quarterback, and McCormick out, that's another guy they have to worry about. So can Bellmont kind of really slow down that offense enough to win? I think that's a big question, and I think they grinded out wins against Leo. They scored 35 against New Haven, which was impressive. But I just don't see this as a grinded out type game on Friday. I really think that the team that wins is going to score upwards of 20-plus points.
All right. A final question about this. What is really going to be the thing that tips the scale for you in this game? What's going to be the biggest point of emphasis that could change the way that Friday night comes out in terms of Kendallville?
What Leo did against Andrew McCormick was showing him a lot of different looks, similar to what we talked about with Isaac Stiebling, and confusing him a little bit. I expect the same thing out of Bellmont. If they're able to really limit what he can do in the pocket and outside the pocket, and really make him look like a sophomore, as in terms of a veteran senior, like he's looked the majority of the season with his plays, then I think Bellmont has the advantage. So I think that's the key thing, is if they can kind of get into Andrew McCormick's head a little bit on Friday.